Alright guys, so today we're going to talk Elden Ring. I wasn't planning on talking about this early. I wasn't even planning on getting this. But I saw the 10 out of 10s and kind of felt socially obligated to get the game. And so, I'm going to talk about my history with these types of games first, before we get into it. I've, played Dark Souls 3, maybe to the extent of, they showed me how to fight, and I was like, absolutely not, and then uninstalled it. So that's that. Sekiro, I bought when it launched, probably got to the same point and was like, yeah, absolutely not. Went back, maybe a year ago, and got, probably 3 hours in. I mean, I was really bad. And this is all coming from someone who's completely talking out their ass when it comes to these types of games. But Sekiro felt more like a parry and blocking based game, if that makes sense. And the Dark Souls games always felt like it was more roll and dodge based. And I'm much better at a blocking system. And so that's why I tried that. I got, an okay distance into the game. I got past the first boss, right? And that was about it. But then it got too difficult, stopped playing that. So that leaves us here. Again, I wasn't planning on getting this, but everyone says it's so good that I had to get it. And so right now, I'm probably, 10 hours in. If you play the game, I've completed the entire first region for the most part. Just going around discovering things, at least what I've found. I'm just going around the perimeter of the map, basically, and just doing everything that I find. Completionist, so I'm a psychopath. And then I went south, and I've done about half the stuff down there in that region. So, I have a decent amount of playtime. I wanted to wait till I had a bit more to make this video. I don't have gameplay, because I forgot to hit the record button when I was recording the gameplay yesterday, so it is what it is. When we get to the review, we'll actually have some fucking gameplay, but that won't be coming out anytime soon, because this is going to take me forever to beat. One, just because of how long it is, and it's an open world game, so it automatically takes me forever, and the fact that it's impossible also is going to take me forever. So we're looking mid-April maybe for this review to come out. I mean, I don't know, it depends on how much more difficult it gets, but let me talk about things I actually like and don't like about the game. So just rapid fire real quick. I don't think the game looks incredibly great. It does what it needs to do graphically, right? It looks like an Xbox One, PlayStation 4, before we jump to next gen style game. It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look great. The pop-ins noticeable. They do drop frames, and not in performance, but even in performance mode. But it is what it is. The map, and again, I'll get into all of this in way more detail in my full review. That'll probably be 40 minutes long. But the map, I have some problems with. I understand they try to go for the minimalistic thing and they don't want to give you any type of markers, but things like knowing where vendors are and knowing what types of dungeons you've completed and haven't completed is just completely left blank to the player. You have to end up coming up with a marker system, is what I did, putting custom markers on things that you weren't able to beat so you know what you have to come back to. That's all nitpicking stuff. Really, how's the combat? And so the whole reward system here is you go in, you fight, and it's super hard and you can't beat it and you lose all your XP, and you come back and end up, fighting and winning, getting all of the XP back. If you die before claiming that XP, then you end up losing it all. It's much like Jedi Fallen Order, right? Except what works differently here is in Fallen Order, when you claim your previous life's XP, you also get all of your bars refilled and all of your health and all that stuff. That doesn't happen here. It's purely just XP you're reclaiming when you get to your previous life's gear. And so there's a whole bunch of classes and all that stuff, and I'll get into that later. I just chose the basic knight looking guy to keep it simple. And there's all types of menu things I want to go over that aren't, super simplistic. They don't walk you through everything, but that's fine. I mean, you look at something like any type of survival game or hardcore game, just complete different genre. But look at Ark, right? They don't tell you how to do shit. They just throw you in there and figure it out, right? And that's fine for the most part. They teach you the basics of what you need to know. But something I either just completely ignored and missed a tutorial on just wasn't paying attention, I don't know, but what they use as a currency in this game, runes, there's vendors where you can buy gear and consumables and weapons, armor, all that good stuff. And then there's your upgrade system, and that's using these runes you earn through combat to level up. And what I didn't realize until probably now, 10 hours in almost, a region and a half into the game, is that those same runes you're spending at these vendors is your XP. So I could have leveled up, 5, 6 plus more times now, but instead I was wasting it on crap gear that ended up being worse than what I already had and sold anyways. So just, that would have been nice to know, but I learned my lesson. I'm not going to make that mistake again. So there's that. There's other nitpicky things, like the co-op's way too overly complicated and useless. It's just complicated to be complicated. But what you're here for, the combat and the bosses and the fighting, that all works really well, right? And typically, the whole appeal of this is, overcoming difficult bosses and finally, after doing one fight for 3 hours, getting that sense of relief. And typically, I would not be that person, right? I typically would go in and yeah, that's not worth it. After I die twice, I'm pissed off and don't want to play anymore. But so far, I'm good, right? I'm making it through. I want to say an hour and a half is probably the longest I've spent on one boss fight, and I didn't get too pissed off to the point where, okay, I'm done, right? I'm sure that'll definitely happen, but so far I haven't gotten to that point where I just rage quit. Now, without getting into a super detailed breakdown of, all of the systems and the balancing and the weapon scaling and all of that stuff, both the good and the bad, that's pretty much all I want to say for the most part. The only other two things I want to talk about are the world itself and the enemy types, right? And so the enemy types, I'm 50-50 on, because this is a problem I have with these types of games. These weird monster type enemies I've never been a fan of, right? I either need a full-on humanoid type enemy, like a knight or something, and that's there, or just go entirely animalistic. I can't do that half and half. That's just, for me, it's just too weird. That's just me. A lot of the enemy design is really cool. There's, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's been 2 encounters so far where I'm like, holy shit, that was cool as fuck. But I'm not going to spoil it, but one of them's to the south, that's all I'm going to say. There's that, and then the world so far kind of has that open world broken feeling to the point where, not so much, I don't want to say the Ubisoft effect, right, where it's just pointless shit everywhere, because that's definitely not the case here. There's a good amount of stuff spread out in each region, but it very much feels like I have to just hug the corners of the map, right? I wish the map had some kind of indication, or there was maybe, further view distance, or some type of way to climb up and see these types of areas in the distance, because what I'm currently doing is literally opening the map and running a perimeter around every single region looking for locations. And sometimes you can see a castle in the distance, or a big crater with guys, doing some ritual in the ground that you can see from a distance, but a lot of the time it's something that's a hole in the side of a cliff that you just have to come across. And as a completionist who wants to do literally everything, that just requires a lot of running around the perimeter of the map blindly looking for these caves and such. Now, is the game a 10 out of 10? Absolutely not, right? There's graphical problems, there's performance problems. Like I said, the whole co-op thing is convoluted. They don't explain some things, greatly that do need to be explained. But is it bad? And that's the thing, is I've seen, 99% of the stuff I've seen, 10 out of 10, best game ever, game of the year, right? But then there's a good 5% that's this game sucks, this is terrible game design. And I don't know if that's just the people that are bad, because I'm one of those people, but I understand, how this works. And, that it's very simple, right? I mean, game design wise, and I don't actually making the fucking game, obviously that's hard, but just like as your central gameplay loop and like your satisfaction, like how the whole thing's set up, it's bad guy is hard. Hours and hours and hours of just learning and analyzing and fighting the same dude and just watching all of his animations over and over and over and over again, and then massive dopamine dump when you beat him. And then that dopamine dump just carries you to the next big boss, and you repeat the process. And so as long as you're decent enough to where the dopamine hits between bosses get you from one to the next one, you're fine. This game design works perfectly well. And like I said, I'm bad at these games. Like I'm not good at all. But so far, to the point I'm at, it works great. Alright, now, like I said, there are some annoying things, and we'll get into that more in a review. But so far, if I had to put it at a score right now, I'm probably sitting at like a 7 or an 8. I want the gear scaling to come into play more. That's going to largely bring that score up to the high 8 or 7, or possibly even down lower. But so far I've been using pretty much the same gear the entire game, so I want to see how that changes. And I want to see, you know, maybe how much there is replayability. I personally couldn't see myself replaying this, just because for me, once you've beaten the boss once, like that takes all the specialness out of it. You know how to beat them, and that's it. But I could definitely see how playing as different classes would change things up. But again, this is already too long because I don't know how to shut up. But that's my first impressions video. The review of this will come out at some point. I'm gonna beat it before I make that review, and I've been hearing like 70 hours for normal people, so that's probably like 100 something for me. So it'll come out at some point, I'm sure, but who knows when it'll be. Probably be talking about Destiny 2 next, but I'll see you guys on the next one.